United score 3 for the first time since January to dispatch a sorry Crawley. It's unbeaten in 4 now for Neil Harris's men and a first visit to a playoff place. Is this as good as it gets, or is there more to come? Hello then, and a very warm welcome to Under the Abbey Stand. This is the review show. I'm your host. My name is Jordan Warland. Thanks for joining us. First up on the panel today is a man who is literally yawning at me as I'm doing my intro. Makes me feel good. My pal and yours, it's Mr. Tom Walker.
Yeah, good evening, Jord. Been a long day. Been a long old day.
You said... No, hang on. Let me rephrase that. I said to you, Tom, a centre mid would score on Saturday. How are we feeling about that, eh? Could have a good prediction from me?
Yeah, these are becoming quite George Stradamus, should we call it? Swindle. We had some wind-related chat yesterday. I'm not having you digging me out about should we say trying to squeeze a name into another name.
But it's funny you should mention the wind talk because my intro for Swindle goes like this: completing the panel, a man fresh from making wind-based footballer names puns. It's Jack Swindlehurst. You're going to have to tell the people, Swindle, how good you were on Saturday with this.
I mean, I think my best one was, Armand Cycloné was an inspired choice. There were some progressively worse ones throughout the day and throughout the match. I think there is the shot that you sent of us being clipped on the extended highlights is me turning around and I think saying blowy Ironside to Tom Sewell and him sympathetically laughing in my direction. Some of them were god awful.
Did you carry on into the second half, even though the wind died down by then?
Yeah, the wind really didn't do much at all. It was just a talking point at the place we were before the game, which might be a nice little segue into a sponsor.
I had a different segue into the sponsor. I was going to say, Swindle, you're a Spurs fan and a Cambridge fan, so it must have been enjoyable for you to see Jack Rolls back at the Abbey.
Yeah, very true. That is very true. Yeah.
Can you remember where he's from? Which country he plays for?
Cyprus, I believe.
Cyprus, of course. Good food in Cyprus. Slightly better food in Greece, though, I think. Can you name one Greek dish for me, Swindle?
I can name a skepasti, I think, is a Greek dish.
That's the one. They are. 2 segues into our sponsor. It's going to be a good pod. It's going to be a great pod.
You could have totally pissed over George Chips there, Swindle, by simply just going like souvlaki.
Yeah, I was tempted, but I've let him down a couple of times.
Feta. Yeah. Of course, our sponsors this year is the Old Spring, number 1 Ferry Path, Cambridge, a host of terrific deals for you as a Cambridge and UTAS fan, including the Matchday Meal Deal, which includes the now famous skepasti, the Saturday happy hour, 6 till 7 half-price beers, great place to be if you win a free one at home victory, and then also the ticket holder discount, 10% off at any time. Right, segues done, wind puns done. Let's move on to the action. A lovely home victory to talk about, Tom. How was what's your take on Saturday's game?
Job well done, I think. Kind of hard to have like a really overriding hot take, I suppose, because I think in a way it was kind of what I was expecting. It was kind of what we sort of discussed on the pod on Friday, of course.
Everyone loves that Friday pod.
Yeah, I know. Just in the, I think first of all, I think Crawley looked pretty average. I think.
Do you know what they look like to me? They look like Gary Monk's Cambridge United.
Yeah, seen a lot of that. Seen a lot of that chat. I'm not,
terrible at the back, good in midfield, but yeah, nothing to show for it.
Yeah, not an unfair comment, I think. But yeah, I think overall a pretty ordinary side really, and I think for parts of the first half particularly, and to be honest, the last sort of 20 minutes or so, we probably made harder work of it than it needed to be. But there was a part in the middle there which was simply just us having much more quality than them and just being able to take the game away from them, really, just by having better players, the players a little bit more cutting edge, a little bit more instinct. And I guess on the face of it, it looks like a pretty comfortable 3 points. But I suppose it kind of depends what way you look on it. It could be a positive or a negative, is that I don't feel at any point we properly got out of first gear really. I think there was a period for sort of 10 or 15 minutes lead when obviously we scored the second and then the third goals where we did look pretty good. But it didn't really feel like we had to be that good. And, we're sat 7th in the league, obviously in the playoffs positions, not a million miles away from that top 3. And I'm not sure we've really hit our stride yet. And I think that's something that, all right, the argument could quite easily be, well, you'd like us to have hit our stride by now, and is it a concern that we maybe haven't quite hit the top gear? But the other way of looking at that, I suppose, is that we're already in a pretty good position, sitting fairly pretty in our league position, and you feel like there's so much more to come, and that means that probably the dial moves in terms of what do you actually expect or what could be possible this season. Because, I think we've played, 2 of the top 3 already. We've played a few of the relegation candidates. We've played a few of the teams like Fleetwood, for example, who you might expect to be sort of, in and around the middle of the table. And I don't think there's really any sides that look that good, to be honest. And the fact that we have, I think, in terms of individual quality, probably more than 85 or 90% of teams in the division. I think there's a couple in there, like, if you look at like Chesterfield and MK, where they've got individual quality and pedigree and stuff that maybe might be a tough test for us. But I think I think on Saturday afternoon, I think it was probably just one that maybe just raised expectations a little bit. I think not necessarily through what we saw in the performance, although I thought there were parts of it where we were pretty good, but more just in terms of what should be achievable this season, really, with what we've got available to us. So job done. But it's about consistency now, isn't it? And I think that's the one thing that League Two is kind of defined by. I think it's if you can find a bit of consistency and you can go on 1 or 2 runs throughout the season where you maybe go 8, 10, 12 games without defeat, or you can pick up sort of 4 or 5 wins in a short space of time. All of a sudden, the outlook's much better, and this has to be sort of part of that, I think. But I think a fairly ordinary side, pretty comprehensively dismantled, I think, without us having to put too much effort into it.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a lot of possession in the first half, but we never really felt that troubled, and a little bit nervy towards the end when it shouldn't have been. But Swindle, I want to get you involved and get your thoughts on this. Tom's already sort of mentioned this, this idea that there's another gear to find for the team. Harris himself said similar in his post-match interview. So the win sees us up to 7th in the table and into the playoffs. But does it feel like we find ourselves in this position without properly showing up yet this season?
I think to a point there's some validity to it, but I also think like this is a group of players that are still getting used to each other. I think there's it's quite a new group of players after a relegation. I think teams also always take times to acclimatise to a new division when you're going down, and it's a different kind of kettle of fish to playing in League One. So I think there's been some really promising performances and some really frustrating ones, but I think Cambridge United are now starting to kind of find their kind of level in this league. I think Tom touched on it, and I think Crawley were pretty poor and didn't offer much, certainly until the latter parts of the game. But I think it's promising to see United put teams away and build on what was just a truly awful season last season, and we've kind of found ways to win even when it's not pretty. I think there will be better performances, and better performances will be required, certainly as the season goes on, because there'll be other teams that will find their feet a bit more, and certainly will face a lot better teams than Crawley Town. But we beat the team in front of us on Saturday, convincingly enough, and scoring 3 at home is great after, as we said, a very tough season to endure last season. So I think, pretty professionally done from United. It wasn't the most exciting of games for the entirety, but I think there were some really positive points, and I think 3 points is 3 points. And you look at the league table, I think 7th, is a good position to be in at this point. And it's we've spoken many times about how League Two is and how it's different. And, a couple of really good runs strung together can leave you in that playoff picture come the end of the season. So I think being at this position now is great. And hopefully there's time for United to build some momentum and take performances like that and, turn 1 point into 3 in games where we haven't maybe done it already this season.
There's been talk, Swindle, of sort of performance quality and the fact that we haven't maybe hit top gear, as we were saying, and that extends to Saturday's performance against Crawley. But I just wonder, I wonder if we could flip this perspective and this argument and ask the question of, are we maybe not giving enough credit and airtime to what Harris and the backroom staff have done so far this season? You know, it's a solid start to the season, crept up into the playoffs now, got really great defensive stats, only one defeat in the last 6. It's looking pretty good, despite the fact that on the pitch it feels like there's a little bit more that we could still achieve.
Absolutely. I think that there does need to be credit due to both Harris, his staff and the players ultimately. It's a big adjustment coming down to League Two. And I think it was a good start, but then it was kind of faltering and there's been questions about personnel. And I think, it's been navigated really well. I think it's got in for a team to have been in League One for, the amount of time we were and come down and, have to do League Two again and try and, navigate that with a massively new squad. But I think there's credit due all over, really. I think it's been a very kind of professionally run start of the season after a summer where some people were left a little bit worried after who we'd signed and in the manner and who we hadn't signed. But I think they've done really well, and the players that have come in have really proved themselves, and those that have remained, we'll mention him later, players like James Brophy who have remained and stayed with the club are really impressing at this level too. So I think there's a lot of credit due all over the pitch and in the back rooms really, and I think the credit is deserved, but it's all about pushing on from now. We are only 11 games into this season of a 46 game season, which is a huge amount, and a bad run can leave us in the bottom half, and suddenly we're complaining about players and management. So football fans are fickle, but at the moment I think credit is due kind of all over really.
Let's talk a little bit then about beating those Red Devils, the famous lot, Crawley Town. Pre-game lineup comes out, Tom. Noticeable changes at the back. Bradshaw gets a start. How happy were you to see that? I already know the answer to that, but tell me how you thought he got on Saturday, because I think he grew into the game personally, and the second half was better after arguably not the most inspiring first 45.
Yeah, glad to see him come in. I think that's been probably the one, the one name that we've consistently probably would have liked to have seen a bit more of, to be honest. And when he has played, and obviously he's been pretty much restricted to the cup game so far, but has been pretty good, and I think really deserved his chance. To be honest, you're right. First half was a tricky afternoon. I think got a bit better. I guess you would caveat that by saying that we conceded a really poor goal, I think, and that sort of comes from that left hand side. But I think sort of grew into the game, as obviously you rightly say. But I think probably one that I would be tempted to have a bit of patience with. It doesn't feel like it would make too much sense to get him in the team, and then if you're not seeing exactly what you want from him first time out in the league, that is, you swap Purrington straight back in. Doesn't feel like that'd be the best way to go, but I guess we'll see. But good to see him in. I think just like, I guess in terms of the lineup more generally, I think it's kind of exactly what we were hoping for, really, and it played out in the way that it needed to. But a welcome addition. Slightly surprised, I would say, that Bennett didn't come in on the other side as well, but good to see Bradshaw in there.
Was saving him to bring him on as a last-minute attacker, wasn't he? Swindle, Tom's alluded to it there. There were some other changes, specifically in midfield. We had a question come in from Tom, not Tom Walker, a different Tom, asking, was Dom Ball being injured a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it could have been, certainly in the context of yesterday. I think the game went really well from a way that we ran that game using the midfield. I think we've kind of got ourselves sorted out and our system, a bit in place now. And Tom has been quite pro Pelly, and I've maybe been slightly less pro Pelly. But I think yesterday he really impressed and really kind of showed the player that he can be. It wasn't just a goal. I think his performance was brilliant. And I love seeing McLovin in there. And the pair of them operating quite well together. I think just having Adam Mayer on the pitch brings a kind of different beast. Cambridge United with him in the team are unbelievable. So I think it's nice to have that midfield selection headache in quotation marks. And yeah, Ball will certainly have to, fight for his place for sure. But I think, yeah, a bit of healthy competition in there, and also depth in our squad is really useful, because it's a long old season, as we've alluded to, and suddenly a couple of injuries can leave you a bit light. So if we've got players waiting in the wings who've performed well already this season, it's good. And healthy competition can bring the best out of players. And I think that might be what's happening with Pele. He knows that there's people waiting for their chance who are very able footballers. And I think, yeah, he's picked up his game. It has been improving over the last few performances, I think. And yeah, certainly even better on Saturday.
Right, let's touch on some of the action itself from the game. Starting with you, Swindle. We go 1-0 up. That man inside the 6-yard box again, Mr. Shane Lavery. How exciting is it to have a poacher like that in your side, who's just so dangerous in those sort of those close areas? And how enjoyable was his performance in general on Saturday, and specifically what he brought in the second half with his counter-attacking play?
Yeah, he is a joy to watch. I think everybody does a sharp intake of breath whenever he sets off on a sprint, because everyone's a little bit worried about the his hamstring going. But it's an absolute joy to watch. I think just being that kind of, having that know-how in the 6-yard box and in that area to be in the right place at the right time, and being lethal in that area as well, is just fantastic. He's going to get a lot of goals, and took his chance when it came on Saturday. But yeah, as you say, in the second half with the counter attacking play and his role in the CUFC goal, he played that ball into Brophy really, really well, and just holds the ball up and carries it really well. He's quick, and he covers a lot of ground very quickly. He turns a potential attack into a dangerous attack quite quickly. And yeah, he just really works hard for the team. It's great to have that as an outlet, especially when we've had Apre, playing at the start of the season, a very different type of player, but a very useful one as well. And then we see both CUFC and Lavery, starting together, and I think that's really good. And also, it was good to see CUFC involved yesterday. He was winning a couple of headers. He just gets himself about right place at the right time to score his goal. But Lavery is a cut above and could be really important for us if we can keep him fit and get him towards 15 and 20 goals this season. Then he could be a serious part of us looking towards where we are now in the table, and finishing there.
Feel like that's a big if in that statement there.
Yeah.
Tom, both the first and the second goals came from set pieces. Had a question from Mark on this topic. 2 parts to it. Part 1, do you remember when we never looked like we were going to score from a set piece? And number 2, is there now an over-reliance on goals from this route? An interesting take on it.
Yeah, I do remember those days. They seem to be
all too well.
Yeah, it felt like like latter stages of a game and you're pushing for a goal, like an equaliser or a winner or something, and you get a corner and there's a bit of a buzz and you're like, come on, like that sort of thing. I felt like that was quite a long time where you're just like, oh well, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, look, I think I guess again, it's one of those things where it kind of depends on your outlook on it. I guess I think the fact that we're such a threat from set pieces is such a big positive, because I think the fact that we've got players like Brophy, like Mayer, like Kai when he's back in the team, who are going to get up the pitch and probably are going to win a lot of free kicks, means that we're going to have a lot of deliveries into the box, and obviously in seasons gone by we've been pretty lackluster at trying to make the best of them, I think, and obviously it's such a bonus to obviously have obviously a bit more threat there. I think the kind of over-reliance on them is another way of looking at it. Like, we didn't create tons in open play. I think the third goal is obviously the example of a bit of quality in open play. There was also an opportunity for Lavery that was made by CUFC as well in the first half. Lavery probably should, test the keeper a bit more when he's through on goal. But other than that, like, there wasn't loads that springs to mind in terms of proper clear-cut open, open play chances, and that maybe is a bit of a concern. But this is all kind of part and parcel of what we were discussing right at the start around the fact that we are where we are, and we probably haven't got properly out of first gear really on certainly not on too many occasions yet. And I guess if we are stuttering a little bit in terms of our sort of chance creation from open play, then it's not a bad backup to have such potency from set pieces. I think it was No, the last game at the Abbey, we pretty much won on set pieces. I think the equaliser against Fleetwood and the winner both came from them. It's 2 goals again from set pieces yesterday. Looks like Colchester, right? It's 2 goals from set pieces there. We're just a threat from them. And, part of it is what are we doing? I actually probably would say that against Fleetwood, it was a real thing of like the quality from our set pieces that sort of earned us the goals, if you like. I think Crawley will be a little disappointed on how they defended both of them. In both instances, it's players left unmarked. I didn't think for the first goal, I didn't think it was like, it wasn't one of those balls in that's like indefendable. It was, fairly, sort of bobbles around a bit and Lavery basically kind of fastest finger first or fastest foot first, I guess. Managed to poke it in. The second one, like, you're leaving someone totally unmarked. And obviously it's a good finish from Pelly and obviously good for him to get his first goal. But probably I think on Saturday against Crawley, they'll look at themselves a little bit more than we'll look at the quality of our deliveries and whatnot. But, it's still 2 goals from set pieces. That's good. I would like to see us be a little bit more fluid from open play, that's for sure. Arguably, the games that we've had at the Abbey are the exact games where you should see that, really, because a lot of it's been against teams that are, expected to be sort of bottom 6 candidates, basically. But I guess we've got a bit of an opportunity coming up in the next few games against teams that probably will come out a little bit more, and maybe that'll suit us. Maybe that'll suit us having a bit more space, a bit more opportunity to create chances from play. But yeah, I have to see how it goes. But for now, and I suppose it's a bit of a cliche, really, but you're never that bothered about how the ball goes in. I suppose it's about getting it in.
Absolutely. I guess after the ball went in, Swindle, there wasn't too much good stuff for United in what was left of the first half. Crawley boss possession. One notable incident that I want to get your take on, though, was a really good save from Eastwood. Sort of went 1-on-1 after a ball was chipped in by McCurdy. I didn't clock it at the time, but a lot of people were talking about it, and when I watched the highlights, the commentator was talking about it. Do you think there was a shout there for a Crawley penalty?
Yeah, I didn't see it in the game, and I don't know. No. Well, maybe, I don't know. It's a tough one. I think if you're a Crawley fan, you're probably being like, yeah, that definitely could be a penalty. But is it? You'd be frustrated to see it against your team, and you'd love it if you saw it for your team. I think not. And I think they offered very little generally, and I think they would have been very lucky to be even at that point. But yeah, I mean, I guess you've maybe seen them given. I don't really think there's too much in it, and I wouldn't have given it.
Good. I'm glad you wouldn't have. Follow-up question, because we've mentioned his name, Tom McCurdy. Busy afternoon on Saturday. Question from Ben. For £750, should someone have punched him in the face?
What a bargain that would be. Yeah, bit of a helmet. Let's not beat around the bush with it. Probably, like, again, it's kind of cliche-ridden stuff, but probably at his best, you would say he's one of those players who hate to play against but love having on your team because he's just a wind-up merchant.
Yeah.
And I suppose on days when he's not at his best, he just looks like a bit of a tool, to be honest. And that's kind of how it came across on Saturday. Just glad he didn't really have too much opportunity.
Speaking of wind-up merchants, Tom, arguably Eastwood's finest moment so far as a Cambridge United player came in response. Couple of words for the Danny Potter-esque trolling that Eastwood did towards McCurdy. Do you remember that?
I actually don't, to be honest.
Do you remember that? Oh, mate. Okay. So, like, in the first half, he sort of just walked the ball to the very bottom of the 18-yard box towards the byline.
Yeah.
To encourage him to come over, then pick it up. Top shithouse thing, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, that's great stuff. I would say he's got a little bit more to do to be named in such esteemed company as Danny Potter, but it's a good start, I suppose. Yeah, fair credit to him. But yeah, I mean, McCurdy, just a bit of a, insert word here, I suppose.
Insert £750 fine here. Look, Tom, after going 1-0 up, I mentioned it, but Crawley really bossed the possession without causing us too much trouble. After the game, Neil Harris said, people might think I was happy at half-time because we were 1-0 up, playing at home and looking relatively comfortable, but I wasn't. The players knew I wasn't. I thought it was important I told some truths. So, two questions to you on this topic. Number one, what do you think was said at half time? And number two, how impressive was that start to the second half compared to especially what we've seen in home games so far?
Yeah, I imagine it was a bit of a rocket of just you know, all right, you're winning the game, let's not get complacent. Like I think it's fair to say, like first half we like it's a weird one because Crawley seemed to control quite a lot of the ball. They had like 65-70% possession of it, I think, but without really doing too much. So one of those situations where you kind of felt like you're under a bit of pressure without there being any immediate threat. But I think the message would have been basically like, you've found yourself a goal up, having not really done loads, but if it carries on like that for the whole second half, like you'll probably concede and you'll probably gift them points where we just don't need to. Might have been worded different to that, I'm going to guess, but something along those lines. And then, yeah, I think it was that 15-minute period after half time, really, wasn't it, that sort of leads to the second and then the third goals. It's just about being able to really use the extra quality that you've got, and we've got more quality. Like we've got to probably, if you want to reduce it down to its, in the simplest possible way, we've probably got a more expensive squad than Crawley, and you want to be able to show that, and you want to be able to see the benefit of that. And 15-minute period, yeah, sort of just after half time, I thought we just took the game away from them pretty easily, to be honest. We look good. I think the third goal is brilliant. Like, we obviously win the ball back, and like the highlights are great for it, because like you just see like amber shirts just stream forward. Like Mayer makes a brilliant run, Kouassi makes a good run, and it's just great work from Brophy again, who sort of increasingly is becoming quite potent in the final third.
Mr. End product.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, like since Harris has come back, he's been excellent. Even accounting for the last sort of 10 or 12 games of last season in League One, managed to get on a score sheet a couple of times there, and obviously playing against better opposition than League Two, particularly at the start of the season, scored a lot of goals, and now he's perhaps turning creator a little bit more, which is good. And yeah, I think if you look at the afternoon as a whole, like you beat a team like Crawley 3-1, both centre forwards score. Pelly gets off the mark. You'd probably say that's about as good as it can get, I suppose. But yeah, I thought maybe it's asking too much to be like, we want to see that for 90 minutes. Like what we're like just after half time, because that'd be a pretty special sort of performance if you could do that. But yeah, I just felt we just took the game away from them, and we probably did make it a little bit harder work after that than we needed to be honest. And there were moments in the game where you felt like if Crawley managed to get a second, having obviously got the third, then obviously it becomes a much more awkward watch. But I think after that, what was it, 57, 58 minutes, Kouassi scores, and pretty much it's kind of good night, really, isn't it? So yeah, good stuff.
Let's touch on the second goal, specifically Swindle. The first for the club for Pelly Ruddock. How important was it for him to finally get off the mark and get a goal?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier. It's great that he got the goal, but it's also the manner of the performances of late as well. Saturday he was really good generally, and I think he's just coming into his own. A while since he's played at League Two. Gelling with this team, all the rest of it. Whatever the reasons have been for a slower start than maybe some of us expected. He's coming into it now, and it was great to see. And yeah, it was he was clearly really, made up that he'd scored. It was a nice celebration. Don't know what the celebration's about, but hopefully we see more of it. And yeah, it was great to see everyone getting around him. He clearly gets on well with the players, and it's nice to see. And yeah, they were happy for him yesterday. I think it was a big moment for him, and can hopefully just kind of propel his season to better heights. Really, it would be great if he could be a kind of a linchpin for us, and one of those players that can kind of push us towards, the playoff and conversation and beyond. So yeah, brilliant to see, and nice to see everyone get around him, and the fans, and also just such a crucial time to score that goal.
Yeah,
really important to score. Then we, as you both mentioned, I think Neil Harris put a rocket up them at half time, and he kind of led from the front, Pelly, and made things happen, and cleared up that ball when it was originally cleared, and stuck it away. So yeah, just brilliant to see, and hopefully, yeah, the first of many goals, but many performances like that moreover, really.
I think it was important for him to score that type of goal as well, because we've seen him have a lot of similar opportunities like that. Like he seems to be in the right place for sort of kind of the second phase of a set piece, and he's just not connected with any of them so far. I can't think of an instance where he's drawn a save from the keeper. There's been some that have gone wildly over or wide, or he's then sort of dragged it back and passed instead of shooting. So I think it's important for him to score that type of goal, because that seems to be his role in the set piece setup. And as we've been saying on the pod so far, that's clearly an important route for goals for us this season. I also think an odd thing to say on a day where he scored his first goal, but I thought his defensive work on Saturday was brilliant. Anyway, Tom, it wouldn't be fair to not get your thoughts on Ruddock scoring a goal, because after all, on the preview show, when asked which central midfielder was going to score first, I'm 99% sure you said Pelly Ruddock.
Yeah, you're more convinced of this than I am.
Well, you didn't say Tom Paul. Oh no, actually, I'm now starting to get.
I think you said.
Did you say McLovin? No, didn't you say McLovin?
I might have done. Yeah.
Let's pretend you said Ruddock though.
Before we started recording, you were like, "No, I'm pretty sure you did."
I know, but like
now
I'm now starting to get flashbacks.
Now we're mid-record. You're grassing me up. That's a disgrace. Yeah, maybe I was wrong. Who knows? Yeah, really good for him. Probably maybe the most talked about player throughout the season so far. In terms of what has been delivered compared to expectation. I think in a sense the expectation was a little bit unfair, because I don't think he's the type of player that, like a Houlihan-esque sort of player who's going to basically transform a game on his own. But I guess the argument maybe is if he's probably highest paid player, maybe he should be like that. But anyway, yeah, I think again, like we mentioned a little bit with regards to Bradshaw, but I think it's especially true of Pelly Ruddock, is that you just stick with him. Like you just stick and you trust in the fact that he's got the quality, that he's got the ability, and that he'll be able to deliver it. That he took his goal well, which is good. But I actually thought he played pretty well overall, to be honest. I mean, it wasn't a day really for central midfield, I don't think. The conditions didn't really allow it to kind of play through midfield too much, but yeah, I thought he was well. I thought he was pretty disciplined, and obviously gets his goal, which is a good reward. He's just got to use it, Jord. I would say as a platform upon which to build some good form. And yeah, look, we've spoken about the central midfield part of the pitch so much already this season that we've maybe not quite clicked there yet, and probably arguably I would say we still haven't yet. We probably still haven't quite found that formula. But I think it's pretty obvious that is if you can get the best out of Pelly Ruddock, your chances of finishing in the top three go up quite dramatically, I think. And look, it's a goal from almost like sort of a rebound from a set piece, so it maybe doesn't define what is the best of Pelly Ruddock, but for sure it's a good milestone for him. It'll be a bit of a monkey off his back, I suppose, in a way. And yeah, hopefully he can just kick on.
Talk to me about the third goal, Tom. I thought there was some lovely play in the build-up for this one, and another Brophy assist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I sort of mentioned before, I think it looks great on the highlights, because like the amount of bodies that we get forward, having won the ball, you sort of snapped into action, and I think this is probably the bit of quality that we showed in open play in the game. And like Lavery's role in it is good. I thought potentially as a striker who's scored already this afternoon, confidence must be quite high. And obviously we've just scored a second goal, so probably bit of momentum. I thought potentially he might be a bit selfish, but he wasn't. Obviously plays Brophy in, and Brophy just does such good work. I think actually I thought he might try and play across when I think it was on his left foot. And then he just shifts it back onto his right, which kind of takes the defender that sort of immediately in front of him, takes him out of the game. And Kouassi's just on the spot, doing what good strikers should do. And it's just a really good, well worked goal. And again, it's just an example of maybe just having that bit of quality at this level that maybe can see us through in these games. I think I'll probably use it as maybe a slightly wide an opportunity to kind of widen out a little bit to having that front two to be honest, because obviously Lavery plays a big role in this goal. He obviously scores the first, and obviously him and Kwasi at points linked up pretty well. I thought it was like Harris was asked about, I think, in his pre-match pressure about about the idea of lining up with two up front, and I really didn't think he'd do that. I really didn't think he'd start with two up front. And you know what? I think what we said in the preview show was almost like, if we're going to do that, like, it does limit what you can do from the bench if you do need to change the game. So probably if you start with two up front, you probably need to go 2 or 3 goals ahead by about an hour mark. And obviously it played out to perfection, really. And obviously gives you the opportunity to withdraw one or both of them if you need to. That's obviously really good. And I just think, it's more fuel on the we should play two up top fire against pretty much anyone at this level, really, because we just look miles better like that. We just look so much more effective. We look so much more threatening. And I suppose the thing will be is when can we get Apre back into it? I suppose is the main question, because at the moment, if we're going to play 4-4-2, it's kind of options exhausted a little bit, unless you want to like play around with like having like Kaika up there or maybe Kachunga potentially. If you get Apre there, then you've got a genuine bit of variation, and that's when you can start changing things up a little bit. But I guess going back to the third goal, really, really good bit of quality, really well taken, and good for Kwasi. I think it's his first league goal, which is good. I think I've been fairly impressed with him. I thought he got off to a slightly shaky start right at the start of his time with us. A couple of less than impressive cameos, I'll say, away at Colchester. I think it was Bristol Rovers as well. But I think since he got his goal against Charlton in the Cup, I think he just looked like a really good addition. Really, really, really hard working, a real handful for defenders. And I think probably him and Lavery, really, as much as as much individually, but like combined, they both just look so much better with someone playing off them. And I think that's it's just working well for both of them at the moment, I think. So hopefully we can see a bit more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kwasi's performance on Saturday deserved a goal. Lots of hard work, lots of good running, and the start of it looked like the start of a good sort of link up between him and Lavery. They seem to sort of understand each other pretty well, and we're finding each other. His control, his turn, and his pass in the first half for a chance that Tom mentioned earlier was terrific work. And really valid point about going with the two up top. It does seem to be fruitful. So I suspect that will be what we look to do against Shrewsbury away, because it's such a good opportunity to follow up a league victory with another one off to Shrewsbury, who are having an awful season so far. 3-0 up then, Swindle. Was there any element of disappointment from you that at that point we didn't go on and get that really big score? Didn't get a 4-4 or a fifth, like we'd been sort of talking about on previous pods, and how we'd want like a really big statement victory. Any element of disappointment for you there? I mean, there were definitely chances. I think Adam Mayer had 2 that I can remember. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a tricky one, really, isn't it? I mean, we don't want to complain too much, and ultimately we got the job done. I think if we were going to do it against any team, Crawley would be one of the teams that we'd be looking at to do it against. I don't really want to bring too much negativity to the fore, really. I think we managed the game well enough. I think, as you mentioned earlier, Jord, I'm not sure we're going to see too many total performances, 90-minute performances. I think there will be lulls in game, and I think other teams will come into it. I think we did enough on the day on Saturday, scored 3 goals. I don't think we should be complaining too much. I think there'll always be chances that we don't take. It would be nice to put a few on someone this season, but I think a 3-1 victory at home against a potential banana skin of a team who've been doing badly this season is job done, really. So I don't think there should be too much frustration, and trying to dig people out for not putting the game away. I think there was always going to be a kind of Crawley revival, and we actually managed that quite well in that game and got through it. So I'm not too disappointed, and I doubt that a plus or minus 2 goal difference come the end of the season will be the reason we're in or out. So I'm not too annoyed about that. More annoyed about Harrogate still.
Which time? I mean, I'm a greedy guy. I wanted 5. Tom, Crawley did get a goal back. Obviously, they've been dangerous down the right hand side for most of the game. Did it take any gloss off of Saturday's performance to not finish with a clean sheet? Did you feel nervy of a comeback at any point?
I don't think I was too disappointed with not keeping a clean sheet. Weirdly enough, and it would have been nice, and obviously famously a platform upon which we could have built. Noticing that Neil Harris has started to use that phrase a couple of times in his interviews as well. I think he did his pre-match and his post-match interviews after Crawley. So, yeah, maybe he's a listener. Who knows?
Or maybe it's just good sense.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, didn't even think of that, to be honest. Which is quite worrying, I suppose. I think, yeah. Look, I think what took a little bit of the gloss off it for me was not so much the fact that we conceded a goal. I think it was more just the fact that we couldn't quite use that momentum to keep going. You know, having got the third. Crawley obviously massively on the back foot at that point. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm disappointed because we haven't gone out and won like 4-5-6-0. But I do think it would have been good if we could have just kept up a little bit more pressure. Really showed like had a little bit more in the tank going forward. And to be honest, the last half an hour was a bit of a was a slightly more difficult watch, to be honest. And I suppose you know there's another world where I think it's from one of their corners actually. They hit like the inside of the post,
Yeah.
and then have a shout for a penalty which wasn't given. And you're wondering if we concede at that point. I can't remember exactly how long there was left in the game at that stage, maybe like 10-15 minutes or something plus stoppage time. Then we could very easily be sat having a different conversation, but that we're not. You know, we won the game on the face of it pretty comfortably, and yeah, I suppose you've got to be quite happy with that. But yeah, I think for me, I suppose it depends a bit on like what are your expectations, because like, you know, you're 3-0 up, like, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense to be too gung ho at that point, and you know you do just kind of take what you've got. But yeah, I think actually probably the manner of the goal we conceded is disappointing because it just felt so easy. Like, I didn't feel like we were like particularly well structured at that point. It's such an easy ball down the left hand side. And, you know, obviously I think it's Shimanga that taps it in the end, but you know, McCurdy I think it is actually left in loads of room in the box just to try and lift it over Eastwood. But yeah, a poor goal to concede, but I think it was more the kind of manner of the performance the last half an hour that I was slightly disappointed with. But you know, I'm picking really because if we're winning games 3-1 every week, I think you can accept us sitting back a little bit and just taking what we've got.
Pick away, mate. Pick away. I mean, I earlier said that Pelly defensively was really good on Saturday. I stand by that, but I actually think his role in the goal was pretty disappointing. But never mind. Tom, a question from Mark to end the pod, and I'm thinking about your preseason prediction here. Mark asks, should the bullishness be rising for what this squad can achieve, perhaps with more additions in January? Top 7 minimum, top 3 a real possibility, question mark?
Yeah, I think so, to be honest. I think what we've seen so far is that our floor is going to be pretty decent this season. And probably I don't want to say like at our worst we'd be top 10, because but I think like basically if we perform to like a sort of average level, we're probably not going to fall too far below 10th, I think. I think, and this is going to sound like a massive overreaction, really, maybe to like quite a standard result against a team that you expect to beat, particularly at home.
Do it.
But
anyway.
like, I was coming out of the ground yesterday and we were walking back, and I just thought like, I think like talking about competing for the playoffs to me just seems nuts in League Two. Like, we should be top 7 minimum, absolute minimum for me. You look at some of the players that we've got, you look at where we're at, having barely really, you know, sort of broken sweat really this season. And I'm thinking like, really, like we should be looking at the top 3 almost as like, that'd be a good season. That'd be fine. That'd be good. You know? Because I think like there's probably a couple of other teams in the league that we should be threatened by. But like, to me, honestly, I look at it and I think like, you know, I think the expectation has to raise a little bit from like what we perceive to be a good season. I think challenging for the playoffs, because that indicates that if you finish like 9th, you'd be maybe quite content. Like, no chance. I think we should be looking at the playoffs as like a fallback option for not finishing in the top three. Basically, is the way I see it. And I might have been slightly more bullish than that sort of this time yesterday, maybe discussing things relating to the title, but I won't go that far just yet. Not publicly anyway. But yeah, I think basically I would agree. I think probably the expectations need to rise a little bit, and we are well capable of finishing the top three this season. Absolutely no question about it. So I think the aim has to be automatic promotion, to be honest.
You talk about what would be a good season, Tom. Let me tell you what would be a great season: promotion and a trophy as well. And the journey to Wembley starts on Tuesday night. You excited for Vertu?
Oh, mate, like a dog with two tails at the moment. Delighted. 3-1 against Crawley on Saturday, followed up by a Vertu match against arch rivals Luton Town. Come on now. This is the stuff, isn't it? We're also treated, actually, in October, because I think we've got 2 Vertu games as well, which is great stuff. So, very much like London buses, we waited ages for it to come back, and then we're treated to two in quite a quick succession. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have a little day at Wembley, wouldn't it? Alongside our title parade. Yeah, look forward to it.
What I love is, Swindle, you sneezed twice when we started talking about the Vertu, so you're clearly allergic to it. So I won't ask if you're looking forward to Tuesday.
Absolutely, yeah, no, but I love that the bullishness rising question has just led to Tom having such great sights for the end of the season. I can't wait for whatever unfolds in the next 35 games. But yeah, no, I agree. Really, I think we're certainly should be up there and thereabouts. And Saturday was another good indicator that we're going to be hopefully one of the better teams in this league. Famous last words.
Gents, that seems like a terrific place to leave it for today. Before we go, I'd like to remind everyone of the coconut tier, a mere £5 a month, and you get an exclusive bit of content each week, normally a written article, but some extra pods in there as well. And as George found out on Saturday, if we see you at the bar in the Swan and you admit to not being a coconut tier member, we're going to ask you about it. So sign up to avoid a rather embarrassing situation. Swindle, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you too, mate. Thank you.
Tom, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, hasn't it just?